Why is it that the moment you step into the shower, or lie down to sleep, or finally get a quiet moment alone, you suddenly find yourself rehearsing an argument that never even happened? You imagine what you would say, how they'd react, the perfect comeback you didn't deliver, but might someday. And you walk away from these imaginary conversations feeling angry, anxious, or strangely victorious. But here's the mystery. Your brain isn't rehearsing arguments because you're dramatic. It's rehearsing them because it's trying to protect you. And the reason goes deeper than you think, down into the oldest layers of human psychology. Today, we're going to unravel the hidden science behind your imagined confrontations, why they feel so real, why they drain so much energy, and what they secretly reveal about what you fear, what you need, and what you've been avoiding. Picture this. You're walking through your day and something small irritates you. A friend's comment, your boss's tone. You don't react. You tell yourself, it's fine. But hours later, your brain reopens the case. Not just once, but on a loop. This is because your brain is wired for simulation. It's constantly running what-if scenarios to prepare you for threats, including emotional ones. These mental rehearsals are the mind's version of shadow boxing, swinging at an invisible opponent, hoping you'll be ready if the real fight ever comes. But here's the twist. Your brain isn't just preparing for the argument you fear. It's trying to resolve the emotion you suppressed. The anger, the hurt, the fear of being misunderstood. The argument isn't the problem. The unspoken emotion is. One of the most fascinating things about our minds is that they hate unfinished business. There's even a name for it, the Zeigarnik effect, the tendency to obsess over incomplete tasks. When you say nothing in a moment that matters, when you hold back a truth, your brain marks that moment as incomplete. And then, on its own schedule, it brings the moment back and says, fix this. That's why these imaginary arguments feel so intense. It's not about the words. It's about the unresolved emotion, begging for release. Your brain is trying to rewrite history so you can finally win the moment you lost. But here's the uncomfortable truth. You're not arguing with the other person. You're arguing with the version of yourself you didn't get to be. Let's go back thousands of years to when conflict wasn't just emotional, it was physical. When disagreement meant danger. When tension inside a tribe meant risk of exile or violence. Back then, rehearsing conflict was a survival strategy. If you couldn't express yourself clearly or strategically, you could lose your social standing, your protection, everything. So your brain evolved to simulate confrontation before it happened, not to win an argument, but to avoid harm. Today, you're not fighting for survival in the same way, but your brain hasn't updated the software. So when your partner says something sharp or your coworker speaks over you, your ancient brain still thinks we must prepare. You start crafting your defense, your counterattack.
Not because you want a fight, but because on some deep primal level, you want safety. And think about your imaginary arguments. Who usually wins? You do. That's not arrogance. It's your subconscious trying to repair your sense of power. Because real-life conflict often leaves you feeling small, powerless, or silenced. The imaginary version becomes a place where you finally say the words your courage couldn't couch in time. It's emotional compensation. Your brain creates the victory you didn't get, so the wound doesn't stay open forever. But there's a catch. The relief you feel is temporary. Winning an argument that never happened doesn't resolve the feeling that started it. So the next time you find yourself in that mental rehearsal, don't just see it as overthinking. See it as a message. Your brain isn't being dramatic. It's handing you a map, pointing directly to what you fear, what you need, and what you've been avoiding. The real work isn't winning the imaginary fight. It's listening to what it's trying to tell you.
You're in the shower, or maybe you're driving home from work, and suddenly you're in it. A full-blown argument with someone who isn't even there. The words are perfect, the points are sharp, you're winning. We all do it. And we tell ourselves it's just anxiety, just overthinking. But what if it's deeper than that? What if you rehearse these arguments because somewhere in your life you learned a dangerous lesson, that speaking your mind isn't safe? Maybe you grew up in a house where anger was a landmine, exploding without warning, or someone you trusted constantly dismissed your feelings. Maybe you were punished for simply saying what you needed. You learned that conflict could mean abandonment. So now, as an adult, an actual confrontation feels terrifying, but an imagined one? That feels safer. Your mind builds this private arena for you, a place where you can finally have a voice without being punished, where you can be honest without being shamed, where you can say what you really feel without being rejected. You rehearse these arguments because you never felt fully safe enough to have the real ones. And let's pause on that feeling. Think about the last imaginary fight you had.
Your heart was probably pounding. Your chest felt tight. The words formed with such precision. That emotional intensity isn't a glitch. It's a signal. Your brain is sending you a message. There is something here you need to address. Not with them, with yourself. Maybe it's a boundary you've never set, a truth you've never spoken, a fear you've never confronted. These phantom fights are a sign of unidentified emotional needs. But let's be honest, fighting them takes a toll. It drains your energy. It keeps you up at night. It builds resentment toward people who haven't done anything yet. Suddenly, your partner becomes a villain, your coworker an enemy, all cast in a story they never auditioned for. You're fighting shadows, but the emotional bruises feel painfully real. Psychologists call this catastrophic expectation. Your mind assumes the worst, so you won't be surprised. But living in constant preparation for a battle that never comes means you're never really living at all. So how do you break the cycle? You don't try to stop the thoughts. You can't command your mind like a machine. Instead, you learn to interpret the message underneath.
The next time it happens, ask yourself, what emotion did I swallow today? What boundary did I let someone cross? What wound is being poked? The moment you connect with the real emotion beneath the argument, the imaginary fight starts to dissolve. Because your mind doesn't need fantasy combat when your heart finally feels heard. You're not actually trying to rehearse the perfect comeback. You're rehearsing being a version of yourself who feels confident, grounded, respected, unshakable. That powerful voice you hear in your head, that's not your angry self. That's the real you, the one you silence to keep the peace. But you weren't meant to live your courage in your imagination. You were meant to live it in your real life. So the next time you catch yourself arguing with someone who isn't there, don't judge yourself. Listen to yourself. The argument isn't about them. It's about you. It's about the boundary you're craving, the confidence you're building, the safety you're seeking, the voice you are finally learning to trust. And maybe these imaginary conversations aren't a sign of overthinking at all. Maybe they're the first step toward becoming the version of you who finally speaks up. Not because you're angry, but because you're finally brave.
Hey, but before you go, I want to leave you with this. If you've ever replayed arguments in your mind, you're not alone. I do that all the time. It's just your brain trying to protect you, trying to help you find your voice. If this video helped you understand yourself a little better, feel free to stick around because understanding your inner world is one of the most powerful steps you can take toward real growth. There's more here that dives into the psychology behind the things we all feel but rarely talk about. And if you want to keep growing, learning, and understanding your inner world, I'd love to have you on this journey with me. Thanks for watching. Truly, take care of yourself.